Hi, I'm Dr. Keshishian, and welcome to our podcast series, PPE, Podcast for Psychoeducation, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today we're discussing the stress you might be feeling if you are pregnant during the pandemic. These may include worries about going to your OBGYN visits, living through the stay-at-home orders, and preparing for delivery and post-delivery care. I am joined by Dr. Emily Dossett, who is an assistant clinical professor at Keck School of Medicine, USC, and the associate medical director of Women's Health and Reproductive Psychiatry at the Department of Mental Health. Dr. Dossett specializes in maternal health and can provide us a lot of insight. Good morning, Dr. Dossett.
Good morning.
So we will be discussing some of the common emotional responses expectant mothers can feel, what going through your pregnancy might look like during the pandemic, and strategies you can use to prepare yourself for your delivery. Dr. Dossett, in general, from your experience, what kind of worries do expectant mothers typically experience?
So in general, even when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, it's really normal for expectant mothers to be concerned about their physical health and for the physical health of their unborn child. It's a time when women might change habits around trying to eat more healthy foods or trying to exercise more or trying to give up smoking or alcohol. There's a real drive towards trying to actually do the very best they can for their bodies, and because that in turn does the best for the baby. It's also really, really normal to have some degree of anxiety around the labor and delivery itself, particularly if it's your first child or if you have had maybe a negative or even traumatic experience in a previous labor and delivery. So being concerned about who's going to be in the room with you, what pain control is going to be like, how long the labor and delivery is going to last, are very normal concerns for a mother, really at any time.
And how do you think COVID has affected these emotions?
COVID has really heightened all of these anxieties and concerns. In terms of the ability to protect one's health during pregnancy, all the normal concerns that we just discussed apply, but there's also, of course, the very real concern about infection and what that infection for a pregnant woman might mean, not only for herself, but for her baby. But there's really not a lot of consistent guidance right now about what a COVID infection might mean if you're pregnant. And then on top of it, with the labor and delivery, when the pandemic was first really gearing up and really starting to escalate, a lot of hospitals put into place a no visitor policy, which meant that women were going to essentially labor on their own. And some of them were even told to take, an iPad with them or a phone so that they could essentially FaceTime with their partner or their families during labor and delivery, which, as we all know, is, better than nothing, but certainly a far cry from having the people that you love around you. So that really heightened anxiety about labor and delivery as well.
I can definitely see that. I mean, in general, worrying about your own health, but now the health of your unborn child during the pandemic, and then the uncertainty of what does that mean, and if you do become infected, and then the worries about what delivery would be like. What suggestions do you have to help expectant mothers better cope with these worries?
There's actually a fair amount that women can do. I will say the number one protective factor for any pregnant woman in terms of her mental health is actually social support. And that is true whether or not we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Right now, it's harder, right? Like women who maybe were really looking forward to a baby shower, or were hoping to spend a lot of time with their mother or their sisters, just hearing more about what it's like to become a mother. So it is important to continue to get social support however you can, whether that's through FaceTime, texting, phone with women in your life that you already know and love, or even through online support groups. And there are some online support groups out there that are specifically for pregnant and postpartum women. Other strategies would be to continue to stay educated from reliable sources about what COVID-19 means for pregnancy, labor delivery, breastfeeding. Good websites would be the Department of Public Health. They have an excellent website here in Los Angeles County. Another really good website is the American College of OBGYN, or ACOG. They have a lot of patient information. And of course, you can always ask your prenatal care provider. It is important, though, to make sure whatever information you get is from a reliable source, because as we know, there's always stuff out there online that is not reliable. And then a third way is basically turn off the news.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, whether you just click on your computer or turn on your phone or certainly radio or TV, it's always about COVID. And while it's important to stay educated about the medical aspects of what it means for your health, too much overload about the numbers of people dying or, new manifestations of the illness can just be really, really overwhelming and can really heighten women's distress.
Now, earlier you had mentioned in the beginning of COVID and delivering your baby and what that kind of looked like. And things obviously have evolved. Things are changing constantly. And delivering your baby during the pandemic certainly has its challenges. Many mothers probably have expectations of what they thought their delivery would look like. And now these expectations or realities might have changed due to infection control policies. Currently, it seems like sometimes hospitals are only allowing one visitor and families really aren't allowed to wait in the waiting rooms. And what do you think, what are your thoughts about this? What do you think the reactions might be to this?
Right now, the vast majority of hospitals are allowing at least one visitor. Mm-hmm. So at least women are not having to go to a hospital and labor alone. And as a mom, I can tell you that would have been terrifying.
Right.
What it is difficult, though, is that for a lot of women, and this is partly cultural and partly just the way some women's families are made, is really the whole family wants to be there.
Right.
They want to have moms and sisters and cousins. And, that can be really sad. That can feel like a loss. And there can be some grief around that.
The ideal that you might have in your mind, we might not be able to get that. However, there are creative ways of figuring out what you can do and being better prepared, it sounds like, then it's not so much of an unexpected at that moment, oh, this is terrible, because you had some idea going in of how you could get the things that you wanted to in a way that was feasible.
The more connections you can make with others, the more emotional and social support you have, the better. Mm-hmm. Again, it's hard because of physical distancing, but it is possible. Once the baby's born, and this is presuming that the mother is COVID negative and the baby is COVID negative, really any way that you can plan for practical help, the better. So if it's possible at all to have groceries delivered to your house, mm-hmm. If you do have that one person at home, your partner, your mother, your sister, whoever it is that was with you during labor and delivery, to stay with you, help take care of the baby so that you're resting and sleeping, that is essential. It's always essential. These are not different than what we would tell new moms anyway. But because of COVID, again, it just takes more planning than it typically has.
Mm-hmm. So let's just try to sum up a few things that we talked about. In general, worrying about your health for yourself and your unborn child is stressful, but during the pandemic, it adds a different layer, which is absolutely normal. And making sure to keep an open communication with your doctors and healthcare providers about your fears and concerns so that they can better help you make better decisions.
Correct.
The idea of this loss of what you had potentially imagined what your delivery would look like can be difficult, but there are ways to make this new delivery just as special. And it sounds like having a plan, being informed about what you might be able to expect, talking to your team, you can be more prepared and in this way have a little bit more control. The biggest thing I think we've talked about is the importance of making sure to take care of your own physical and mental health first. Yes. Because if you're unwell mentally or physically, you will not be able to care for your child or your family.
And again, having a baby is a very joyous time, and there's always some anxiety. So mm-hmm. Don't beat yourself up if you're worried or anxious. Of course, if it gets in the way of your day-to-day functioning, you can't sleep, you can't eat, then it's time to check in with a professional about it. But just understand it's okay to have a range of emotions right now. It's okay to talk to other people about how you feel. There's help if you need it. And just that kind of understanding and permission to feel the emotions right now that go along with this time is actually part of emotional wellness.
Thank you, Dr. Dossett. You provided really important and great insight. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope this is helpful for all the new mamas out there.